Good morning. It's 11:30, so let's get started. This is the joint JMAP Cal Ext session. And I will point out a little bit more than usual the new note well. Oh, we have a lot of audio from next door. Okay. I'll just get used to that. So we have now a new slide with a new QR code, which you can scan in order to get more details on all of the different documents that it talks about here. But this has to do with both the intellectual property rights that are implied when you're participating in an IETF meeting and mailing list as well, and also to the guidelines for behavior, anti-harassment procedures, and so on and so forth. So if you are not very familiar with these things, you really should become familiar with them before you do any significant participation here, and take these guidelines seriously, please. And then we have the usual tips for people here. Please do log into Data Tracker and join the session on MeetEcho in order to both be able to participate by getting into the microphone queue, and also in terms of recording your attendance, even if you don't intend to speak. We need that in order to know how many people are here, and so that we get an appropriate sized room the next time. Please keep your audio and video off if you are not currently speaking and remote. And please state your name at the name and preferably affiliation each time you begin speaking, so that we have that for the minutes and for the remote participants who may or may not be able to identify you from your picture. Bunch of resources, of course, the meeting agenda, preparation, and so forth. You're probably familiar with this. So we've done the note well. And we're going to start with CalExt before JMAP. Any other business, and then of course at the tail end we're going to go back and review our milestones to make sure that we're up to date on those. Do we have any modifications to that? This is not very specific agenda that's published here, so okay. And okay, here's the more detailed one that actually contains something that you might want to bash. But
so this is all the documents that are currently underway for CalExt. I wanted to start. There's 4 documents IASG. The tasks and subscription upgrade have had some recent updates, but Mike said he wasn't able to join us for this session. So Ken, I don't know if you know anything more about what's going on with them. That's a no from Ken. So I guess there's not much we can do with those at the moment. Should we look at JS Contact UID and JS Contact profiles then?
You want to go to the next one?
No, that's the JMAP one. So hopefully Robert has fixed his audio issues by now. Robert, hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, so those 2 documents are so the JS Contact UID document, actually, I held back to discuss within this meeting. I will get to this when we discuss the when we get to my slides, which we could do now. I don't know what's the
let's
plan.
bring them up now.
All right.
Switch the slides.
Switch to Robert's slides?
Yeah.
The JS Contact slides, please. Yeah.
JS Contact. No, that's Bill.
Yeah.
This one.
Yep.
Do you want control, Robert?
Yes, please. I need to click request slides, I guess, or. Oh, all right, perfect. All right. Yeah, so JS Contact. Yeah, there are two documents in flight currently. One is the JS Contact Profiles document. There haven't been any changes, and it's basically submitted to ISG for publication, so it should be published anytime now. The other document, JS Contact UID, I asked to hold back until this meeting. We were running into a couple of issues with vCard conversion, which my colleague Rick has pointed out on the mailing list. I wasn't sure if that's going to impact JS Contact UID, the document. I came to conclude it does not. So from my perspective, we can just go ahead with the JS Contact UID document as it is and ask ISG for publication as well. That being said, I do propose other work for vCard conversion. Again, based on the experience that we now got more from using vCard and JS Contact conversion more in practice. I do suggest that we update the RFC 9555 document, which is about converting between JS Contact and vCard. First, we had planned to do that anyway in order to use the same conversion mechanisms that we define in the JS Calendar iCalendar document for JS Calendar iCalendar, but also with the learnings that we now have from issues that we ran into with vCard conversion. I think it's also worthwhile updating the document to point out that this or that conversion rule, what kind of issues people might run into. What this proposed work is not going to do is to try to fix any of the issues that we have currently with vCard version 4. I think that should be another document, and it's not something I do plan to work on in the foreseeable future. Unless, of course, on the mailing list we come to the understanding that actually there is enough interest to updating vCard version 4. With that, the next steps, as I said, I think the documents that we have in flight already, they're good to go. They can be published anytime. And after this meeting, I will submit a document and suggest to update RFC 9555, and then we can go the regular route of asking for adoption if there is interest, and if there is, I can work on this document then.
Thanks, Robert. I believe these documents are already outside this working group, so the working group doesn't need to make a decision on these. Ori is not in the room at the moment, but I will catch him and chat with him and say, let's go ahead with those two.
Yeah, cool.
So, yeah, and if you submit a draft, then we can do a call for adoption on that when it's ready to go.
Yep,
all right,
great.
Thank you. Next topic is the JS Calendar BIS, JS Calendar, iCalendar, and extensions. Another three related. Do we have a slide deck for that as well? Yep, JS Calendar status. Yep. All right. Go ahead, Robert.
I think I can't control the slides. Yeah, now I can. All right. Yeah, so with JS Calendar, iCalendar, we have 3 documents ongoing. They're all in the working group still. JS Calendar BIS, which updates JS Calendar, the format. JS Calendar iCalendar, which outlines to how to convert between JS Calendar iCalendar, and then a third document that adds that does a couple of adaptations or updates to iCalendar to support that conversion. These documents, from my perspective, are done. There is no so all feedback that we got is included in the documents. There are 2 independent implementations. That being said, we have not started with interoperability testing with CalDev and ITIP with these documents. That's something we are going to do. There are currently 2 documents that are unpublished that this work is referring to. One is JMAP calendars, obviously. The other is the iCal tasks document. So I would prefer iCal tasks to go first. If I understand, it's basically done. But that being said, I would suggest that we keep this document some more time in the working group to get more real-world data and interoperability testing done. And once we feel confident it's interoperating well, we should go ahead with publication or asking for publication, basically.
So the status of them, the JS Calendar iCalendar and the JS Calendar BIS are both in working group last call. The JS Calendar, the iCalendar JS Calendar extensions document is not in working group last call at the moment. Did you want that to have a working group last call now as well?
Yes, I think we should do that. As I said, I would feel more confident keeping it around some more time within the working group to get more interoperability testing done. But again, that being said, I do not plan any changes on these documents unless we run into such interoperability issues.
All right. What kind of timeline are we thinking for these, when we would be ready to publish these or to send them through the next step?
So I would prefer to be able to do that until Shenzhen. So let's be optimistic and say we're going to find out until then. At the very last, it should be July next year.
All right. By that stage, we will have new area director, I believe. Right? Hi. You're not even our area director. What are you doing here?
I'll shake my head.
Yeah. Cool. So, all right. If I could just check with you on process here. We have a couple of documents that have been in working group last call for a while, and we think we're not ready to send them through just because there's a lack of implementation. Do we pull them back from working group last call and then rerun a working group last call just before we're going to submit? Or
so you're holding them not because anyone's iterating on the doc, but because you're just waiting for implementation.
We don't have implementations to make sure that we're really happy with the engineering.
Well, I mean, I'm the irresponsible AD for this working group. So this is really an ORI decision, but I think the thing to do is you don't need to run a WGLC again if there's no changes to the document.
Cool.
Yeah, if you're just waiting on implementation feedback. Does ORI know that that's what your plan is?
With the couple of documents so far, yes. With the one we're going to just run a work group last call on now, no. But we'll keep the whole set together.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine you need to do another one if there's no changes to the documents.
Cool. Thank you. All right. Is that all then, Robert, for this one?
That's all. Yeah?
We've done very quickly there.
Yeah.
We have the participants series and VPOL drafts sitting in expired state in CalExt. Is there anything on any of them that anyone wants to do at this stage? Excellent. Any other business for CalExt? Cool. Let's pull up the milestones. I might, if you don't share yet,
Oh,
I can
yeah, there you go.
share the screen here. All right. So we've got submit JS contact. It's still waiting for our area director to accept the last changes. There we go. Submit JS calendar BIS, submit JS calendar, they clearly need to be edited. So JS contact UID, we're going to do now. JS contact profiles, we're going to do now. JS calendar BIS, we're thinking July 2026. Thinking July 2026. Calendar. And that's also July 2026. And finally, there was adopt RC 9555 BIS document.
There's a note here. He says, Robert says, milestone should be 2026, not 2025.
Did I?
For iCalendar.
Oh, yes, good point. Thank you. And I think that's all the things that we're planning to do. Anything else anyone wants to put on the milestones for this working group before we move on? Excellent. Thank you. Hey, Daniel. Sorry, we're just doing everything without you. There's one more working group last call to run, and otherwise I think we're sorted.
Yeah, I know I'm late, but I will do that this month.
Great, thank you. All right. And we're now finished with the CalExt part of this meeting. So let's move on to back to the chair slides and the JMAP agenda. See if we have any bashing on that.
Whoops, next.
All right. So here's the agenda for the JMAP part of this session. Does anybody want to do any agenda bashing on this? All right. I guess we'll start with calendars then. Do we have a document for calendars? Neil, hello. Good morning / whatever you call this time.
Unearthly hour of the night, yes. I don't think we do have a slide deck, so I'm curious what is being shared here. Okay, so JMAP calendars, we are in where we're up to now is it was all the way through to the editor queue, and then we pulled it back. We've got had quite a bit of extra feedback as Starwater in particular have been implementing it. So we've got a bunch of minor revisions. The main reason we pulled it back was for JS Calendar BIS because JMAP calendars heavily relies on JS Calendar, so it wouldn't make a lot of sense for it to be tied to the obsolete version of the spec. So we needed to make sure we had any revisions we were making for that and update it to be tied to the new BIS version instead. I will publish a new version today that has all of the changes that have been discussed on the mailing list from the last few weeks, which, yeah, as I said, it includes all the feedback, mainly from Mauro, who's been implementing the whole thing in Starwart. I think the plan going forward from there is that we will wait until we've finished updating Cyrus as well to be fully up to date with all the changes in the spec, so that we are happy we have 2 complete implementations that match it and no further problems have been found. And then we will probably have to do another working group last call because there have been some changes to the document. And then after that, I'm not quite sure whether we'll go through all of the usual IESG reviews again, or whether we'll just decide that the overall changes are minor enough it can, the working group last call was enough and it will skip ahead, but we'll talk to the area director at that point. So yes, short version is new version going out today. Hopefully that's then final, but we will wait along with all those other documents for the 2 full implementations just to make sure, and then they'll probably all go together, I suspect.
Great, thank you. All right, next up we have the JMAP email push.
That one is also me, so I'll stay on the line. Again, this one, I don't think there have been many substantial changes since last IETF. It's just waiting on implementation experience. Again, we're looking to get 2 implementations that we have tested it and are happy it works for what it needs to do before we submit that to working group last call. Just, yeah, so we don't get in situations like we have with some of the other documents again. But as far as I know, it's ready. I don't believe there's any outstanding issues that have been flagged to me on that.
All right, thank you. Any questions, comments on either JS calendar or email push?
JMAP calendars.
Sorry, JMAP calendars or email push. Mauro.
Hi.
Hey.
Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, great. No, it was just my only comment was about the email push extension, what we discussed on the mailing list with Neil about the batching multiple push events together.
That's
in
right.
Case there is yeah, because there is, I mean, usually it won't be a problem, but if the server is down and needs to deliver multiple email push notifications together, it would be nice to have a mechanism to group them.
Yeah, I will update the document with that. You're right. Sorry, that is in my to-do queue. It hasn't been forgotten. It's just, it's 5 to 4 in the morning here, so it did slip my mind.
Okay, no worry, fine. Yeah, it's so in Starwart is has been implemented already, but it's using that JS calendar grouping mechanism that I had proposed. So I need to change it to use the emails field to group them inside
be a bit simpler.
push.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's it.
Cool.
All right. Anybody else before we move on? I have some very simple slides for file node, which is the next topic. Yeah, thank you. It's just called file nodes. Yep, that's it. Yeah, just flip through next slide. You don't need to pass it to me. There's pretty much nothing there. So I've made just a couple of tiny changes since last IETF. I added the is subscribed, which makes it the same as other objects that have subscription support, even though it's maybe a little weird to have it on every single node. We figured just making it regular made sense and align the ACLs with other specifications. that's pretty much all the feedback that we've had so far, other than metadata support would be good, but that we'll be discussing that separately with Mara's draft. And at this point, I think it's basically ready to have enough implementation testing that we're happy to publish. Hans-Jörg.
Hi, this is Hans-Jörg. Can you shortly elaborate what you mean by metadata support? Because I'm not sure.
The idea here is that for each object, you would be able to store metadata about that object. And the question is whether we put this in each spec or whether we have a separate spec, which is metadata about JMAP objects.
Oh, okay. There was discussion about that on the list, or where do I find that?
Yeah, some discussion on the list, and Mara has a draft that he'll be presenting.
Ah, okay. That's coming later. Okay, that's good. Because I basically reviewed the document here, and that was one of, so multiple of the points basically refer to that. So basically then I'll probably have a look at that first before checking the thing. There was one thing beyond that. So I tried to figure out, so the understanding is basically, you have a root node, which is basically for the, kind of file store you're looking at. And I was wondering how it would work if there is something like, my file store versus something like a group file store or so on. So it wasn't quite clear for me from the draft how that would work. And similarly for folders in general, I wondered how can I find out if I own a folder. So the way I had interpreted the draft was basically that would work by being absent from the ACLs as myself, meaning implicitly that I'm the owner. Am I right? Or
good question. I'll have to have a think about that. For the answer of how you tell whether it's yours or a group folder, it would be a separate account ID.
Okay.
JMAP is the usual approach for that. So you would have file node support in more than one account ID.
So that was also what I assumed would be the case, but probably it would be helpful to mention that somewhere in the draft in case somebody is just looking at that particular draft and not so much aware of the overall JMAP stuff.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay, thanks.
Cool. All right, who's next in the queue?
Well,
There's another person there.
Yeah, Neil.
Oh. I was just going to say, like Bron already said, we want to get more implementation experience on this. I just want to say in particular, I think we need to make sure that this provides everything that we need to add JMAP files as a remote file adapter on both Mac and Windows. They both have APIs, I believe, for integrating things like Dropbox or Google Drive or whatever, which you implement these APIs and it appears in the Finder or the Windows Explorer, and we need to make sure that we have all the things that you need to implement that with JMAP. And I think the best way to do that is to actually implement that. So I think we might take a little bit of time, but we'll see if whoever gets to that would be great.
Cool. Thanks. All right, so I have an action there to update the draft to clarify how you tell whether you own something, and also how to tell whether how to handle multiple accounts, what's expected. Excellent. That's all the active drafts that we have at the moment. The next section's expired drafts. We have essential portability, SMIME sender, tasks, and REST. So there are 5 expired drafts that have not had any love for a while. Does anybody want to revive any of them, speak to any of them? Neil, you're still in the queue. Were you? No, Neil's no longer in the queue. Did anybody want to help up on any of them? Alexi, you look like you want to confess something about SMIME sender, I suspect.
Yes, I meant to do something, but obviously it was too busy with other stuff. So I'll promise again. And maybe if somebody can remind me in January to do it, I'll do it by March. So. Yeah, and I think I still need to talk to Philip about alternative proposals and complexity of it, and
Okay. Thanks. That sounds like a commitment to do something. I'll stick in the action list.
So Hans-Jörg again. I think out of the ones listed on the slide, which I don't have in mind right now, we last time decided to park or to de-milestone-ish some of them, right? Like the essential and portability one, except of the task one where I promised to do some work. So I broke my promise for this meeting, but the good news is we are currently updating all our implementations to the recent versions of the specs in general. Like I also wrote in the chat for the file thing, we also want to make sure it's consistent with that. And as part of that, we also wanted to progress spec work on tasks. So as soon as we get to that one, I think there will also be an update there. So it's at least on our plan.
Do you have anyone else at Rodrigo who's involved in this and who?
That's a little bit the problem since Jar's left. It's a little bit on my shoulders, and I try to find somebody, but it's not that easy. So if there's somebody interested,
well, good luck. If anyone does want to volunteer to work on any of these documents, we'd be quite happy for you to pop up as well. All right. Next section here is new work, cryptographic extensions.
Hi, this is a call for adoption of the draft. Next slide, please. So, so the goal.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the goal here is I want to use JS Contact to establish and maintain end-to-end trust across a whole range of cryptographic applications. So you're doing your development work, you're using SSH, using Git, you're signing your code that you produce. So you've got a bunch of cryptographic keys there. I would like to put those into a JS Contact format so that I've got a way of moving them around. I want to give somebody a complete package of all the things you need to talk to me in order to interact with me. Mail, telephone, physical, whatever. And of course, JS Contact is the format that we're working on right now that covers all of that. And so that's where I started from. Next slide. So what I'm proposing here, what my draft says, is I want to make some modest extensions to JS Contact just to make this flow a little bit easier. And the issue here is that vCard's understanding of how cryptographic keys worked is kind of like buried in 1990s sort of technology. Whereas if you had an OpenPGP key format, it was there to do OpenPGP. Today, if you have a key that's being exchanged through an OpenPGP thing, it could be for mail, or it could be for signing a code. It could be for any number of things. And so you need a little bit of glue to say, if you're wanting to do this application, this is the key, specific key to use with that application. The other thing that's changed in that time is, in the past, it used to be, oh, you have one key. In the modern crypto world, we want to have cryptographic hygiene, not just separating encryption keys from signature keys, but separating them across applications, across uses, etc., etc. So just a little bit of additional information to make that flow a bit easier. The ability to collect applications into groups, so you can say, these are my set of application of keys that I use for open source development. And here's the set that I'm using for this particular client. Okay. And then finally, on the extension side, I'm looking to support update, secure update of the contact, so that we exchange the contact once. And then if I add a new key, a new website, new whatever, everybody who I've exchanged my contacts with can learn about that in due course. And so at the moment, the mechanism is pretty simple. So you've got an update URI. At the moment, it's merely polling via HTTP. That can be headed up arbitrarily in the future if we feel the need. and a verification key, so you've got a way of checking that what you receive back is from the person who you think it is. So next slide. So what I'm trying to do here is to provide email address portability. The consequence of this is if you have exchanged contact with somebody, you know all the ways of talking to them with end-to-end security into the future. And there's another half of this that I'm proposing into Jose, which does some crypto wrapper around this whole stuff. And this allows you to do an in-person contact exchange via a QR code. So, you know, you're bumping phones, near field communication, whatever, and you've just done a PGP key signing party with that person. Only you've not gone through. Did anybody here do PGP key signing party? They were a pain. Yeah. So you've got all that cryptographic goodness, and the only thing that changes there on the application side is you've marked that contact as you've got direct trust to that person. And then DNS handles another way of exchanging them. SMTP headers. You can stick the contact information into the SMTP header, and now everybody knows your contact and can update in the future. So that's the big picture. So questions, objections, support, whatever. Oh, and if anybody's interested in being a co-author, I'm very interested in getting co-authors.
So please pop yourselves in the queue, people. I have one question, which is that we're not mailmates, so we don't require 2 implementations in our charter. But still, is there anyone else who is working on this, interested in this, who would come to this group to work on it with you?
Not at present. I mean, the problem that I have is that once you start deploying something and get users, it's a lot harder to change things.
Yes.
And you know, this is a very small increment. You know, this is kind of like a maintenance increment as far as JS Contact is concerned. But yes, I mean, obviously, if we're going to get to publishing RFCs or whatever, we need to have users and probably multiple implementations and so on.
Yeah, yeah. The question is more, maybe this is the correct place to publish it, but is there anyone? I guess that's a question for the room as well. Is there anyone else who's interested in working on this? Robert, go ahead.
So I saw this also on the mailing list earlier, and I'd be happy if JS Contact is useful for the use cases you describe. I'd be happy to give guidance on how we could best fit this into the JS Contact data model. That being said, I'm not a cryptographic expert, so I'm not sure about the other people in that working group. So whatever we come up with should be secure and cryptographically sound. And I'm not sure yet how we can make sure that's the case.
Yeah, actually, I forgot the last slide. I mean, basically, there's 2 parts of this. One's in this group, and the other part is I need to go off to OpenPGP and SSH and so on and ask them, if somebody wants to talk to your application, what do you want to put in the contact? And it seems to me that that's something that we should be, your cryptographic applications should have been talking to all along. It's kind of like doing a MIB, but for your cryptography.
Okay, great. That sounds good. I think the other question that will come up if this document gets adopted by the CADEX working group is how we deal with our charter with regards to vCard. The current crypto key model in JS Contact is basically a wrapper around what semantics are available in vCard. I understand that these semantics are not really adequate. So my personal suggestion would be to not care about vCard in the first run and just try to get this data model worked out properly. And then we might still want to revisit the question if to retrofit it in vCard or not. But I guess that's something we can work out during the in the working group then.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's my feeling as well. I think that if we get it right in JSON, we can work out how to backwards backport it. I mean, basically, you'll end up losing the expressibility of Jose for describing the keys, but they'll just have to understand those. You'll just need to parse them, just like you have to do stuff for PGP or X509 or whatever.
All right, great.
Hans-Jörg.
So this is Hans-Jörg Happel, data portability enthusiast. So you got me a little bit with the portability keyword here for the email address, you said, right? Which I understand would be based on, I could update the address in the signed document and pass it to other people. That's actually an interesting idea. I didn't think about this in this context. So yeah, I must admit I missed it on the mailing list, so I'll have a look at it. And so it seems maybe interesting for some portability use cases. So that as part one. Part two, a small question. You said SMTP headers, so that confused me a little bit. Do you mean MIME headers in that context?
Well, if you're sending emails around, you could stick the contact as an additional header in your SMTP message.
Yeah, but so technically you mean my message, because the SMTP header can't be modified by the user. Yeah. Okay. Just for clarification. Thanks.
Yeah.
Andy.
Andy Newton, not as AD, as an individual. Unfortunately, Philip, I cannot help you. However, I do want to say that I think this is extremely useful work, and this will make JS Contact much more usable outside of the email context. And I'm specifically thinking about things like RPP. So I think this is very cool, and I think it's a good building block for other things.
Yeah. It's also a good way of me going around all the other groups and saying, hey, there's this JS Contact thing. How do you fit in here?
Yeah, and there are people who are trying to figure out, well, they've already done vCard. Why would they do JS Contact? This is a very good reason why you would do JS Contact.
There's also some stuff in SSH. I mean, like SSH has a really nifty bit of technology where you can create certificates in SSH format, but it's really underused on the client side. If I've got 20 machines that I'm using to develop code, I want to have a different SSH key on each machine. Because if one of them's compromised, I want to know which of those machines was doing bad stuff from it. And this is a way that we can get that sort of stuff raised to a best practice. Okay, thank you very much. All right.
So, Jim Fenton as participant, just a clarification, in terms of the cryptographic expertise that I think somebody suggested might be needed here, this is just publishing public keys and some metadata describing how and under what circumstances to use them, right?
Yeah, the way that I'm planning to work is I will write a proposal of how to do it, send it to the relevant working group and say, if you don't like this, suggest some other way of doing it, and then acting accordingly. So, give the other groups the ability to say, oh, no, we'd like to do it this way.
Okay, but we don't need to be cryptographers to understand how to publish public keys. So
no,
great.
Absolutely not.
Thank you, Ben.
Hi, I'm Ben Buchsch. It was very interesting how you said that it's forward compatible, that I can change my email address. Did I understand that correctly? So if you want, can you expand more on how exactly that works? Like if I change my email address, how would the new updated JS Contact blob get to my potential recipients? How do I inform them?
Okay, so
that I cannot already do now.
So you change from example.com to example.net as your email provider. You go to your JS Contact Manager, you change the address there, or you add a new one. You hit publish. The record is signed. and pushed out to the publication point that's specified in the contact. And then people who have a contact manager that supports this extension, when they're sending messages to you, they will periodically check, oh, has Ben updated their email address contact? Oh, they've changed to this provider. Or it would be, they get a bounce back saying, oh, he's no longer here. Then they go into the exception handling. So it just gives a way of capturing that information and providing it to people who need it.
I'm just asking, where exactly would you publish that? Would you publish that on some HTTP server and the URLs in the document? Is that what you're saying?
At the moment, the draft has HTTP server as kind of like the simplest low-hanging fruit. If we got to a place where we had millions of people using this infrastructure, it's possible that you might want to go to a more efficient infrastructure so that you don't need to poll, and so that when somebody updates, the fact that they've updated is automatically notified to a constituency. But that's something that we don't need to build here, and we don't need to build now. Start off doing the low-hanging fruit of polling on occasion, and then move on to the efficient way of doing it as needed.
Right, but you might want to consider that spammers don't want to harvest. Like, there's a reason why companies don't publish their employee register on the internet, and I don't publish my email address on the internet. So you need to think about authentication or some kind of way to do that.
Yes, one of the things that keeps coming up is, you don't want to put too much information in your contact, maybe. And at Hope, I said, well, don't put your FetLife contact on the contact that you send to your grandmother. You can have multiple contact cards and give different contacts to people in different circumstances. That's going to be particularly important for physical addresses. I'm not going to be giving out my physical address on my business contact card, but I will be giving it out when I'm buying stuff on eBay, because it has to be delivered to me. So yes, there are important privacy issues and whatever, but that's basically intrinsic to contacts themselves rather than this particular extension.
Okay, Micke Nordin. So in Open Cloud Mesh, we have a very rudimentary contact information that is exchanged. And we have been thinking about how we can update those. So having this URL to be able to refresh a contact would be very useful. It would also be useful to be able to role that URL, so have multiple of them. And we've also been thinking about having OpenID Connect user ID token, I think it's called, to you do the authentication for getting that contact information. So this sounds interesting and something that we have been thinking about using for invitations in Open Cloud Mesh as well.
Yeah, I mean, for that, if you're building an infrastructure, whatever, maybe we can talk about this offline, but at the end of the day, the fingerprint of your public key that you're using for verifying updates and the unique ID of the contact, if there is one, those two together uniquely specify an update. So you don't necessarily need to say the update server, even in the context. You can float the information out of band without it being explicitly notified. And you can, in an organization, you could have situations where you might have a completely separate mail system for inside the corporation. And yeah, so we can hair this up arbitrarily. Yeah.
Okay, Hans-Jörg again, very shortly. So the discussion triggered 2 pointers in me. So in this point of how to distribute the changed information, we have in the structured vacation notice draft in the structured email working group, and also a similar case where we say, okay, one could basically signal in beforehand, I have left the organization. This is my new address. So that might be interesting to look how that could interrelate, or it could be a channel actually to convey the changed pointer to the changed JS contact thing as well, first. And second, which is a little bit more a question. So I was wondering for a longer time in also for vCard, vCard is just positive information. So I cannot state in a vCard like this is my old address or my outdated address. I would expect similar things might happen for keys. So I might want to track this is my previous key in order to be able to, figure out what was done. Do you see a case for this here, actually? In the key management particularly? I mean, I'm not a cryptographic expert, but...
For signature keys, yes, that could well be an issue that you would... you do have some mechanism inside JS Contact already in that you can give preferences. And you... I think that that's interesting stuff. I think that we probably want to get some experience of the first thing before embracing it. The other thing that I think that we need to think about is that this post-quantum PKI effort that is starting up, and that might be a mechanism that is going to address some of these same issues, in that I've got some mechanism that I've designed but not fully implemented yet that uses Bloom filters and some cutting edge stuff to do certificate revocation. And so, yeah, it might be that we want to be in that sort of environment and take some technology from there or whatever. So I want to get the basics out first, and then, yeah.
Ron is next.
Yeah. I just wanted to note with the URL, quite often people's URLs are tied to their email provider for this kind of thing. So we want to make sure we're doing something that doesn't do that.
Yes. You probably don't, if your objective is to get independence from your email provider, you probably don't want to rely on just them. But you can have multiple URIs. Yeah, I did make sure that was possible.
Okay, I think that's it. Thanks, Phil.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so the action I have from this is to do a call for adoption for this document, which will certainly have to have a name that's more than just JS Contact when it gets published as a document, because JS Contact was already the top level document, but yeah.
Yeah, it was cryptographic extensions. It's just...
Yeah. Cool, all right. Next is generic metadata storage for clients. We have some slides for that as well.
Okay.
Maro.
Object metadata enhanced, is that it?
Yeah, it's one slide combining all three. Can I get control first? Do I need to request? Yeah. Oh, here. Okay. Okay. Hi, everyone. This is Mauro Gennaro. I'm going to present three drafts. One is called Object Metadata. The other was in Enhanced References, or Ref Plus, and JMAP email sharing. Okay, so the object metadata extension is a standard way to add metadata to any JMAP object. And then the enhanced resolve references, it extends the resolve references capabilities of JMAP core. And JMAP mail sharing turns the mailbox JMAP object into a shareable object type. Okay, let's start with the object metadata extension. So there is a way in JMAP to associate metadata with different JMAP types. For example, IMAP has the metadata extension. WebDAV has the dev properties. We've seen some interest on the mailing list. Some people wanted to create, for example, a synchronization application, and they needed to store their own IDs inside the calendars. So this extension will solve that. And also it will allow to store other specific metadata on file nodes. This is just one use case. For example, photography, metadata type specific for photography. And also vendors can annotate any JMAP object. So, well, what this extension does is it creates a IANA metadata registry, so we can create a specific metadata objects for different objects. For example, a photography object. Also allows vendors to extend JMAP objects with the annotation type. And then it has some bridging capabilities, which are obviously, all of this is optional. So the server can decide what to implement. There is also a type called IMAP metadata, which bridges the IMAP metadata, and a WebDAV metadata that allows you to access the WebDAV properties from JMAP. So the JMAP object metadata initializes the registry with 3 types: annotation, that is a generic metadata for any object; IMAP metadata, which is a type to access the IMAP metadata for servers that support both protocols; and WebDAV metadata, the same but for WebDAV. So you'll be able to access the dev properties if the server supports both CalDAV, CarDAV, WebDAV, and JMAP. And also it allows other types to be registered. For example, the one I mentioned, photography. And the way it works, it was designed inspired by JS calendar. So there are different objects with types, like it's here specified. So you have 4 basic properties which all metadata objects have, which is a type, which could be annotation, IMAP metadata, WebDAV metadata, or something else to be defined, or for the annotation also a vendor-defined type with a namespace. So you have the parent ID, so which object you're annotating, and the parent type. And also has support for private and shared metadata. So private is only visible to the user, and public is anyone with access to that object can see that metadata. With the private metadata, so multiple users can annotate and add metadata to the same object. So it's their own. They can store their own data. That is optional. Also, servers can decide what to do, what to implement, if they allow clients to add private metadata or not. Okay, this is an example of an annotation. Here, the server is creating a mailbox and then linking a second request, annotating that mailbox with some vendor-specific properties with the namespace. This is pretty straightforward. Then this is an example how we would annotate a JMAP, a file node. Let's say we create a new draft for photo metadata. We can register that, the photo metadata type, and with some properties like the camera, geolocation, aperture, ISO, date taken, and so on. And that will create like a standardized metadata type for an object. And we can do the same for anything else. The registry also specifies which objects can be annotated with that metadata type. For example, only a file node could be annotated with a photo metadata. Annotations work for any object. The IMAP metadata is only with mailboxes, and the WebDAV metadata with a calendar event, calendar, address book, contact card, and file node as well. So the types that you can access through web.lab, carlab, and calab. Okay, this is how the metadata object has all the JMAP, most of the JMAP methods, set, query changes, and so on. But it also is extending the get method of the support of the data types that can be linked to metadata. This part, if the enhanced result references is adopted, this could be removed because perhaps it's a bit controversial to be extending the get method, but the enhanced result references offers a way to do this without extending the get method, but we'll see that later. And this is an example of the IMAP metadata. So yeah, in the IMAP you have like private and shared metadata, and yeah, in the draft you specify how the mapping works, but you can have comments, vendor specific properties which are mapped to like the key values basically inside this metadata property. Okay, now let's go quickly to the JMAP enhanced result references. So this extension is something that would be nice to have. It's not that the JMAP core is very limited, but it allows to do. When I was doing some refactoring in the code, and I realized that I double checked the JMAP core that the RFC that to make sure that to double check that the result reference can only be used in methods. And I thought, well, it would be nice to use this in other objects as well, inside set methods, inside objects, so you can reference data from GET requests, for example. Another thing that this draft is proposing is to add support for. Sorry, I'm going too far ahead. So let's first say about the problem. So well, it's not kind of really a problem, but we're a bit limited with what with JSON pointers do and where result references can be used. So they can only be used in methods, and we only have JSON pointers in result references. So this draft, what it does is allows to use result references in set requests. So when you create an object at any part of the create request where you're defining the object, you can use a result reference to reference data from, for example, a GET request. I will include some examples. There are some examples later. Also, you can use result references inside filter operators, so you can query. You can use previous results you can chain multiple queries, taking results from previous queries. There's also an example there in the following slides. Then there is an optional mechanism to use JSON path, which was standardized after JMAP core. So I think it would be nice to have to allow to create more powerful expressions. So some use cases for enhanced result references are, for example, when you're creating a calendar and you want to import the participants or the location from a template calendar or a previous calendar you have. You can do that with this. Or you could copy the attachments or the recipients from another email without downloading the email to your client, and many other possibilities. This is an example how it will work. For example, here what it's doing is creating a calendar event, copying the participant and location from a previous calendar event that is retrieved on a previous calendar event get method. then in this example, this is basically showing a JSON path that is, for example, creating an email and copying only attachments that end with PDF. So this is in a single request is fetching the email and then adding those, creating the email with those same attachments in the retrieve email. And this is an example of how resolve references could be used in filters. For example, here this example, there is a query to obtain which one is the mailbox, and then querying the emails that are not, sorry, it's querying which ones the mailbox is with the inbox role, and then another email query with the that is only obtain the emails that are not in the inbox. And this is where the metadata, this is how we could use this extension in the metadata extension. We could chain multiple queries, like, for example, you first fetch the objects and then you query the metadata for those objects that were in the results of the query. So you have, for example, you want to see the final metadata for the certain final object. You first run the query, and then you query the metadata objects linking the result from the final query. Okay, now the final one, this is the easy one, which is the mail sharing extension. So the JMAP mail standard was standardized before JMAP sharing. So the mail object is not a shareable type according to JMAP sharing. So this is very simple. We just need to add the share with property and a new capability and the may share property to the mailbox right. And that's it. So this is a summary of these three drafts. The object metadata for metadata management and enhanced resolve references to extend the JMAP core, and mail sharing to make a mailbox shareable. Yeah, that's it.
Neil, go ahead.
Hello, thanks, Mauro. I'll just go kind of in reverse order, I think, actually, because it's easier. So starting the mail sharing, I thought it looks good, it's straightforward. We wouldn't expose that ourselves to our customers because we want to limit how many configurations of sharing people set up, but it makes perfect sense as an underlying standard. Okay, result refs, the enhanced capabilities there. It was interesting. We deliberately tried to strike a balance in the core spec between expressivity and complexity, and I think we kind of probably got about the right level. Doesn't mean you can't have an extension that makes it a lot more complex to give you a fair bit more expressivity. One thing I wondered was the extending the kind of hash syntax to be able to reference stuff from more places. What we might need to be careful of is, do we know that, what if you had a data type where a property key began with a hash for another reason? You wouldn't be able to differentiate those two. Now, that's maybe fine. I don't know that I know of any, but it's just like, for example, if you had JS contact and JS calendar in theory allow arbitrary keys, I think. And so if you were creating a calendar event or something like that, if you have a property in there that's, hashtag, hash 4, hash something, how do you know whether you're trying to set a property called that in the JS contact or it's a backref?
Maybe if you see if you're expecting, and well, it's not. I need to see how to define that in the draft. if you see that what you're defining starts with a dash and then you have a result reference object, you can assume that is that
you have
you're
to look at
linking.
what the value is as well,
Yeah.
not just the property.
Yeah,
I'd say my
then
main thing
No, go ahead.
is that you. I think it has to be like with the stuff in core, in that this can be done purely syntactically by some server without the server having to have knowledge of differences between different API requests. In terms of like layering, this should be something that like a proxy server could do that doesn't understand what method call you're trying to make to the next server, but it can still resolve backrefs if it's done part of the calls first, but not the next set, because this is purely a syntactical substitution. Now, I think it is from the draft, but I'd have to double check it again. But I think that's important.
Yeah, in the draft, I specify that the server needs to validate the types. So if you're accepting ready to evaluate a certain result reference, you need to make sure that it is what the type is expecting. I wasn't contemplating any proxying though. I was expecting the same server or either the proxy to be evaluating that all together. So the checking.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not so concerned about necessarily a proxy. The proxy could just not say it supports it, and that would force a client to resolve stuff. Do multiple requests, I guess. It's more just in terms of implementation complexity. It's a lot easier if you don't have to understand what something specific about this method. It's just purely, I have this JSON object. It has these keys that start with that hash, and therefore I need to execute the previous method first, wait for that to finish, and then I can substitute that in and then call this next method. And that is kind of in the dispatcher rather than in the bit that actually executes the method, at least in my code.
Perhaps what could be done is like as a separate patch object, but when you're sending a set request, you can separately specify these result references. So it's clear that you're what you're doing is that you want to evaluate, so it's not confusing them. But yeah, there's still a problem with you still need to evaluate the types and make sure that what you are expanding, the result reference you're expanding, goes with that value, with that expected value.
Well, but that's probably okay because you can expand it to nonsense, but then when you execute the method, it would give you an invalid properties or invalid arguments, whatever, as appropriate, because that would have then, the type would be wrong at that point. Let's take this to the list. I think that we'll be able to have a better discussion there. I have a few comments on the other one, but Robert, do you want to go first, and then we'll get to the metadata spec?
Yeah, just shortly, because I had the same concern as you, Neil, about the hashes and the property names. I think, practically speaking, we have the advantage that within the working group, we need to give the rubber stamp for any new IANA registered property names. We can just basically reject anyone trying to register one with a hash. On the other hand, for JS Calendar Biz, we could actually define what are allowed characters for a property name. We do so already for JS Contact, but we only have an ABNF defined for vendor extensions. So I think that concern about the hash at the property name could be addressed by the document that Mauro is writing. Could just update JS Contact and JS Calendars if we don't do so already in JS Calendar Biz anyways. So yeah, I think it's more a procedural question how we can not allow hashes in the first place. I don't think it's a blocking issue.
I agree. It's not a practical one. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, and then just on the metadata one, I have a bunch of small things I'll send through again on the list, but just the bigger question to me on this one is how it relates to like the /changes method, in that if you change the metadata on an object, do you presume that just that the object chosen changes? I presume not, because that hasn't changed. It's just the metadata object's changed, and so it's only metadata has changes. But then I don't know how that will tie in with people's implementations. If they're storing it with the actual parent object, that could get tricky if you're trying to get changes to all metadata objects across different parent types, if that makes sense. I don't know I have an answer. This is where I think we'll find difficulties.
Yeah, and also there is and what to do with the private type. Like, for example, if you're updating, this could be limited, the changes could be limited to only the, now that I think about it, yeah, you should get a change notification for both, even if you change your own the private metadata or the public one. Something I forgot to say when I was discussing the metadata extension is that in Madrid we discussed also the server settings extension, and I think this could be used also perfectly for storing server settings, because it's a generic way to define new types with properties that are IANA registered. The thing is the name metadata is not correct for settings as well. So another idea I had is just to make this like perhaps the correct way is just to have a separate draft for server settings. But what I was saying is that we could also discuss having like a generic object store for user-defined objects, and one of those objects could be server setting or user setting, whatever we call it. Regarding the changes, yeah, that is something we can discuss offline. It could be also removed, the changes method, and assume that is part of the that when you're changing the metadata of an object, you also you send a change notification for that object. But clients not supporting metadata will get a change.
Yeah, you don't want that for clients that don't want the metadata. Yeah, it would have to. Yeah, I don't love that. I guess the broader thing with this draft is, in some ways, it makes sense, but just the slight unease that I think it's the kind of thing that we've seen everyone's going to throw random stuff into, and it's kind of your incompatibility bucket of all sorts of weird vendor extensions end up here. Maybe that's good, but maybe it just ends up with, or maybe, it's this weird mess of...
You mean vendor extensions like vendors trying to register, adding their entries to the IANA?
If they register stuff, that would be great. It's more stuff that I'll just store some stuff here and you end up with a load of incompatible...
Oh, well, yeah, that is when on the server capabilities, the server can specify what you allow. You can just skip let's say you want to only support photography metadata.
I see. So you can restrict. Yeah. So you can remove generic metadata.
Yeah. Specific. If you don't want Wild West annotations, you just don't advertise annotation object, and the client won't be able to add whatever they want.
Interesting. Okay, thanks. I will send more feedback to the list. Thanks.
Okay. Okay.
I'm just popping myself in the queue with no hat on. To nitpick one particular thing, I don't think we should call the reference between the metadata object and the data object that it's related to parent ID. I think we should come up with a new name for that, because parent ID tends to be expected to be something of the same type, and that's a reference to something of a different type. But I'll write that on the list as well.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah, and we can also discuss on the list what you think about mixing this with the server and settings extension we discussed in Madrid, or we should keep it as a separate draft.
Yep. All right. Do you want a call for adoption for each of these documents, the three now on the list?
Yes, that
All right, I think that's the next step, is a call for adoption. I'll do a separate call for adoption for each of the 3 documents.
Okay, cool, thanks.
All right, we're up to the any other business. Does anybody have any other business? I'll share now if you drop that. All right, I'm going to bring up the milestones list then. All right, here's what we have now. We've done a lot of things. Submit SMIME senders extension document to IESG. That's going to be later. We'll kick this one down the road to good old July. JMAP tasks document is submitted, isn't it? No, the other one's submitted. This one. Hans-Jörg, when do you think?
Maybe also July next year.
July next year? Adopt JMAP metadata. Submit file node. Yeah, that's reasonable. I'll push harder on that one. Adopt JMAP server settings. There's already something for that. And so we now need to add a document for extended result references. And document for mailbox sharing. And was that everything? I went back and added the other one to Calext off camera, but I put the adopted document for JS contact encryption. All right. I think that is all our work. I'm going to hit submit on this. And with that, we're done for this IETF. Thanks everybody for joining us. See you next time. Yeah, you can applaud. It's allowed. It's the thing at this con. Yeah. Go team. Thanks. Look at that. We turned out we had exactly the right amount of time.
Yeah, that was great. It flowed well, I thought.
Yeah.
Are you going to be in Shenzhen?
Yes. Planning to.
I will not.
Okay.
I'll be.
Cool. Yeah, Ken and I are going. I'm not sure if anyone else from Fastmail is, but.
Always expected that.
Glad at least one of us is.
I'm planning to add a week of holidays in China afterwards as well, if we can.
Yeah.
Sarah has an adopted half sister, which is, it's kind of weird to be both adopted and half, but her father married again and then they adopted a Chinese orphan. And so her sister has never been back to China, and so we're thinking of taking her on a trip to see where she came from.
Well, my mom was adopted by her uncle, so her brother was also her cousin.
Yeah, okay.
That's sort of.
That's. I mean, that's a thing that happens.
Yeah.
Where families need.
Yes. So I got legal approval. So now, so internally, we have Yeah, we did some prototyping. Yeah, and that went well.
Good. Well, I'm obviously